Hi, it's Rick from Fork Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. Got a little 5-year-old who's growing up way too quickly, in my opinion. She no longer needs to use a stool. She used to need to use a stool to get up onto the counter so she could get something off of it, or she used to need to use a stool to wash her hands. She doesn't need it anymore. She's a big girl now, but I still occasionally sneak that stool in there because I want to keep her young forever. And so when she comes up to wash her hands or something that she needs a little bit of a reach, I put that stool on the floor so she steps up onto it and she reaches to wash her hands or something, and she forgets she doesn't need a stool anymore. She forgets she's bigger or doesn't even recognize how big she has gotten. And then I'll point it out, and then she'll feel silly and say, "Daddy, you tricked me." And then she'll toss the stool away and won't use it, refuses to use it. We always grow, whether we like it or not. We're growing. Like my little 5-year-old, you're also growing, and maybe you don't recognize the growth that's happened to you. Maybe you have grown so much that you may need to take a break and reintroduce yourself to yourself, because you've outgrown your avatar, your image of who you think you are in your mind. Maybe you're bigger than the picture that you have of yourself. Let me just ask some questions about you. How long have you been in your job? How long have you been in your field? Does your resume reflect that? Does it reflect the kinds of jobs that you're able to look for now? Or does it still reflect the kinds of jobs that you looked for 5 or 10 years ago? Maybe you could look back and ask yourself, how much personal growth have you experienced? Have you learned a new skill? Have you kicked an old habit? Have you started a new life-giving activity like getting a personal coach and starting to get healthier? You've changed a lot this year, and you may have missed part of that personal growth. We all have changed a lot this year. Maybe it's time to take a pause for a growth check. In today's text, although it's really, really hard for us to think about, for some of us to think about, Jesus has gone through some significant personal growth. And now that he's returning to a context that he's grown up in and already knows really well, he's experiencing some clashing in that context. While Jesus has been traveling, he's been coming from some really awesome experiences and also some really negative experiences in all those people that he was connecting with. And now he's going back to his hometown to do pretty much the same thing he's doing in the rest of the gospel. He's there to help people connect with God. He's there to tell people that God's kingdom, a better system is on the world right now, and it's a system that's based on love and forgiveness, and people can be a part of that better and healthier system. He's teaching people that God loves them, and he's showing them how to connect with God. And it's all great. It's all wonderful. He's expanding his influence to this new, old location for him. But there's something different about this location that he hasn't experienced in the other locations. The place where he's traveling to is the place where everyone saw him having his diapers changed. Everyone saw him having to hold mommy's hand as they crossed the street to go to a Dairy Queen and get a little kitty cone. It's the place they saw him run out of the house as the ice cream truck was coming down the street, and crying because mommy didn't have enough money for an ice cream cone. That didn't happen at all, but I'm just giving you an example. Where he's going back to, the location saw him as a child and saw him grow up as a child, and they're not ready for the personal growth that Jesus has gone through. They're not ready to receive him as Jesus. They're not ready to receive him as God. In their minds, he's always going to be the little boy Jesus that lived down the street. Today, our text is Mark chapter 6, verses 1 through 6, and we're looking at this to see the problem that Jesus bumped into when he came into a crowd, into a location, into a context that didn't recognize his personal growth and wouldn't allow him to grow and wanted to keep him stuck in a location. We're looking at this text because I think that you need it. You've gone through some significant personal growth, and I'm just wondering if you recognize the growth that you have gone through. And I'm wondering if maybe it wouldn't be beneficial for you just to take a pause for a moment and just to reflect on how much growth you have done, because maybe you need to reintroduce yourself to yourself and correct an old mental image that you have of yourself, because you're so much more than that today. Jesus left that part of the country and returned with his disciples to Nazareth, his hometown. The next Sabbath, he began teaching in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. They asked, "Where did he get all this wisdom and the power to perform such miracles, then they scoffed. He's just a carpenter, the son of Mary and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon. And his sisters live right here among us. They were deeply offended and refused to believe in him. Then Jesus told them, a prophet is honored everywhere except in his own hometown and among his relatives and his own family. And because of the unbelief, he couldn't do any miracles among them, except to place his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Hey kids, thanks for watching this video with your parents. Remember, there are characters hidden in the background for you to find. Make sure you tell us next time we meet who you saw in the background. Also, please remember that we're going through Connect HQ, so please remember to watch the Connect HQ videos for this week so we can talk about them too. I have a request for you from me. Would you please pause for a growth check? Pause for a growth check. You and I, we grow all the time. We never stop growing, but something that we don't often do is we don't often stop to reflect how much growth we have had. We don't stop to reflect if the mental picture we have of ourselves is still valid or if we need to update it because of the personal growth that we have gone through. Here's the difficult thing about this text. So Jesus was never less than God. Totally true. But in the Gospel of Mark, he's also never more than a human. Because in the Gospel of Mark, we have this very human presentation of Jesus. He grew, he learned, he ate. He also experienced something that I think you and I have experienced as well. He outgrew his context because his context and the people around him didn't allow for his personal growth. This happens frequently. Let me give you some examples. Sometimes employers will paint a picture of you and tell you the kind of employee that they want and tell you the kind of employee that they believe that you are. They've painted a picture of you without allowing you for personal growth beyond that picture that they've painted for you. Total strangers also paint pictures of you and decide who they believe you are. And sometimes they've got a good mental picture of you or a bad mental picture of you, and they won't allow you to grow beyond that picture that they've painted of you in their minds. Your kids paint a picture of you. They choose to believe something of you, and they want to lock you into that. Your kids always will see you as only a parent because that gives them stability, and they need the stability and they need the love, and that's awesome. It's just wonderful. But you know what? They don't allow for personal growth sometimes either. And here's the kicker, okay? Some of the people around you are stuck. The context you may find yourself in is locked down. Either the people or your context doesn't make room for growth. They want to hold you back. Everything's just fine, so they don't want to see you grow beyond who they believe you are. I really want you to grow. I really want you to excel. And to do that, you may need to introduce yourself to yourself first, because you've probably already experienced significant growth. And to move forward, you need to recognize the growth that's happened in you. So in order to help you take your life to the next level, in order to help you move from where you were and get you to where you could be, I'm going to ask you to pause for a growth check, okay? Pause for a growth check. We're going to look at Jesus' example right here in this text. And through this example, I'm going to share with you 3 signs for you to look for to figure out if you have grown beyond your context and if it's time to take a pause and check for growth, okay? 3 signs that you may have grown beyond your context and that you really haven't figured out that you're different now and you're much more than the mental picture of yourself that you're carrying. Here's sign number 1. The conditions are all good. The conditions are all just fine. However, there are cracks in the friendships, okay? Sign number 1, there are cracks in the friendship. I don't mean that people are not getting along with each other and they're swearing at each other and they're fighting with you. That's not what I mean. I mean, in a perfectly normal environment where everything is going just fine, you're noticing that there's cracks in friendships. There's a distance. There's pulling away. We're going to talk about Jesus' example for a second. Then I'm going to ask you to think about your example. Jesus was immediately rejected by his hometown. Like everything should have been just fine. The hometown was doing just fine. Jesus was doing just fine. They're all doing their carpentry thing and whatever else they're doing in that town. Yeah, everything is just fine. However, the relationships are they're not what they used to be. You'd think that Jesus coming back to the hometown would be an awesome event, because we've seen, heroes being welcomed back into hometowns, people who have these significant stories that come back to the hometown, and the hometown celebrates them. Yay, this is awesome. But not this time. They've locked Jesus into a picture that they have painted for him. And they say right in the text, he's just a carpenter. And by the way, his sisters still live among us. Okay, so clearly Mary and Joseph had a big family after Jesus was born. I think there was 4 brothers listed, and there are several sisters also mentioned in the story. So big family, right? So they've locked Jesus into this mental picture, and the trouble is they're not allowing him to grow beyond what they think they already know about him. So what's going on here? Jesus is explaining it here. He says family, relatives, hometowns, they don't recognize their own prophets. Okay, now wait a minute. There is a totally useful and great spiritual application here about being a kingdom agent and how to test for receptivity and being on point and sharing the gospel. But there's also a really great practical application here too for you and I to consider. Sometimes people outgrow their contexts because their contexts are stuck. I mean, think about it like this, okay? Just for some examples, think about it like this. A store that sells you cigarettes is not going to celebrate seeing you when you tell them that you've just kicked the habit of smoking cigarettes. They're not celebrating that with you because they want you to stay the same. A fast food place is not going to celebrate with you a diet and lifestyle change. So you're no longer eating fast food, you're eating healthy. That's not going to be celebrated among fast food chains. Gas stations are not going to celebrate your choice of buying an electric car. Your mechanic isn't going to celebrate with you as you choose to get rid of your vehicles and go green and choose to ride bicycles all the time, right? Your favorite Uber driver isn't going to feel really connected with you and get along with you really, really well if you choose to buy your own car because you want the freedom that Wheels brings, right? I mean, those are just a few. There's also those darker things in life too, right? Like we get ourselves into some nasty, some dark moments as well. And there are people connected in those dark moments. Those people holding us down into all of that darkness, they don't want us to grow. They don't want us to kick bad habits and to excel. They want to keep us there. They're not going to celebrate us growing beyond what they can do for us and what they want to do for us, right? People, they don't celebrate the changes in you because it makes them change and it forces them to make changes in ways that they don't want to change. They want to be stuck. Some people want to be stuck. Jesus found himself in a place like that in this passage. These people in the town, there's nothing wrong with these people. They're all great people, I'm sure. It's a nice hometown. Everybody seems to like each other. Everybody knows the name of the neighbor down the street. It's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name, that kind of thing, right? It's like everybody likes each other too. They know who sisters each other are. They know the brothers. It's a great place to go, I guess. It's a great place to have grown up in. But you know what? They're stuck. And because they're stuck, they don't allow for the change that comes with personal growth. Here's the point, okay? This is the point about a sign for you to look for. If you are noticing that everything is going just fine, there's nothing wrong, but you're noticing that your friendships around you, they're starting to feel a little bit distant. You're having trouble connecting. There are cracks in the friendship. Let me just give you a heads up. It might not be them. It might be you. It might be that you are doing a lot of growing and you might be growing beyond your context because some of the people that you're working with, some of the people that you spend a lot of time with, they may not want to grow. They may just like their life just fine and be very content with where they are right now. So if you're feeling some distance in the relationship, it's possible that it's not them. It's possible that it's you. Here's sign number 2 that you need to take a pause and reflect on whatever kind of personal growth has happened to you. Sign number 2, you're having trouble answering the question, why? You can't answer your why. Again, everything is going fine. I'm not saying that anything is bad in your context and your environment. I'm not saying that you're getting lots of arguments. I'm just saying that you're having trouble to answer, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why do I feel that why did this ever motivate me? Those kinds of questions. Let's look at Jesus' example, and then we're going to look at your example in just a moment. Jesus didn't stay in this context. He left this context. And the reason why he left his hometown and didn't continue working there because he couldn't successfully answer the why. I mean, his reason, the reason behind everything he did is mission. He was on a mission to make God known, right? And so he's telling people that God's kingdom is here. The system of God is here. It's a better system than what the world's offering. It's a system based on love and forgiveness. It's not actually a system of rules. It's a system of love and forgiveness and a lot of wiggle room to bounce off each other and to adapt to each other in order to help each other grow and excel and succeed. You know, it's a system where God is at the center of it, and we all love each other and grow with each other, right? So Jesus is around. That's the mission. He's around making God known and sharing with people. God's got a better system. Would you like to follow me into this better system, right? So that's the mission of Jesus. He gets into this context and he realizes he's not on mission in this context. There's no reason to stay in this context. He's lost his why. There's no reason for him to stay in his hometown because he can't successfully complete mission in his hometown. Let me ask you, what is your why? You know, you have grown in some way. You have improved in some way. You're better than you used to be. You know, maybe you don't see it, but you probably are. You know, what's the reason behind your growth? Why have you grown? Why are you working so hard? Why are you trying to excel? Why are you trying to achieve? If your goal has been to kick a habit, hone your skill set, learn something new, get a promotion, get a raise, improve your marriage, be a better parent, whatever it is, that's your why. And if you're following your why, then guess what? Some of the old stuff that you were doing in the old places that you left behind long ago, they aren't going to fit you anymore because you're the one that's changed. If you're working really hard because you want a promotion, then hanging around with a bunch of people that don't want promotions and want to stay in their same old job, they're not going to be connecting so deeply with you as you get closer and closer to that promotion. If you're starting to have trouble answering your why, or if it's been a long time since you've been able to answer why, it may not be because of your context. It may not be because of the people around you. It might actually be because of you. You may have grown so much that you no longer fit your context, and you may no longer fit the old kinds of relationships you had with the people around you. You may have done some growth that you haven't recognized. It may be time to pause for a growth check. Here's a third sign, okay? So assuming that your environment is just fine, there's nothing wrong, things are going on as usual, marriage is good, kids are good, work is good, school is good, whatever's on your plate, it's all good. Here's a third sign to look for, okay? You're looking for more. You're not looking for more because things are bad. Things are good, and things are getting better. And now that things are good and getting better, you're looking for more. Yet you haven't realized that you've actually grown, which is why you're looking for more. Let's look at Jesus' story first, and then we're going to look at your story in a moment. Jesus kept on moving on to new contexts. He didn't stay in the same place for very long. I mean, very consistently throughout the Gospel of Mark, we always see Jesus going to reach out to another crowd. He's always going to find new crowds because he's on mission, right? And for him, success is missional consistency. Success isn't a paycheck. Success it's not really a numbers game. Success is missionally consistent. For him to be successful, he wants to be on God's mission, which is to make God known. So he's going to all the crowds. He's even coming to you in order to make him known to you. And he's inviting you into a new system. It's God's system here based on love and forgiveness. It starts with your belief in Jesus, right? So for him, that's his purpose. That's his mission. Success is missional consistency. And he keeps on moving forward because he's looking for more. Not because things are bad, not because he hasn't excelled as much as he wants to, but because he's still on mission. Now, guess what? You're growing and you're becoming more than who you used to be. And you still will become more than who you are right now. And once that happens, you're going to start feeling like your context is a little constricting. Maybe like you're getting choked. Maybe like you're getting locked into a hug that you're not able to get out of. And I do that to my little 5-year-old sometimes. Sometimes I hug her, and she doesn't like to be hugged for a long time too much because she's a big girl now, and big girls don't have long hugs. Big girls have short hugs. And so I lock her in there, and she doesn't like it, and she pushes away from my hug, and she just runs away. And I get it. She's growing up. I get it. So that might be the same for you as well. You're growing and you're not fitting into your context anymore, and you feel restricted, not because the context has changed, but it's because you have changed. When friendships start to crack a little bit, and when the context starts to feel so constricting, and you can't answer that question, why am I doing this? It might not be because there's anything wrong. It might actually be because everything is right. If you're going to work all the time and you can't really figure out, why am I stuck in this job? Why not another job? Why am I doing the same old thing all the time? Why are me and my friends always doing the same old thing all the time? There might not be anything wrong. There might be some good stuff happening. You have a bigger skill set now. You have more tools. You've refined yourself. You've honed your skills. And it could be that you're more qualified than in the context that you find yourself in. It could be that you're outgrowing your context. And it could just be that what you haven't done is you haven't paused to check for growth. You haven't taken a moment to reintroduce yourself to yourself and correct the mental image that you have made for yourself and say, okay, I need to tweak that a little bit because I'm actually more than I used to be. Okay, so let me ask you, because I do believe that you've had some personal growth. We all have over this last year. The lockdown has changed. A lot of us has changed our styles, has changed the way that we do life, or it hasn't. Some of us have been barely affected, but a lot of us have been really, really effective. We changed a little bit, and I think we've grown through this as well. So let me ask you, are you getting the feeling that you've grown all you can in your current context? Are you no longer challenged in your current context? Are you starting to look around, not because things are bad, just because you feel that you have more to offer? If you're starting to look around because you're getting bored with your context, the relationships are fizzling just a little bit, you're having trouble answering the question, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Pause. Don't make a move yet. Don't make a change yet. I don't want you to make a lateral move, okay? I've made lateral moves. You've probably made some lateral moves, just going from one job to another, but you're not really stepping up your game. You're not really excelling anything. It's just a lateral move. It's like, okay, so it's just more of the same. Pause before you make a change. Pause before you do something new. Pause and do a growth check. Figure out where you have grown. Figure out how much more you are now. What new skills do you have? What new talents do you have? How much more experience do you have now? Pause. Reintroduce yourself to yourself so you figure out, okay, this is who I am now, and this is the new context that I need to find. Because where I'm at now, if I make a lateral move, I'll be just as frustrated over there as I am here. This is the new me who I am now. So pause, do a growth check, and then look for an opportunity that's going to be better and more challenging to you. Success for Jesus was missional consistency. He's always wanting to make sure that people knew about Jesus, people knew how to get connected with God, people had an opportunity to come into God's system on earth, a system of love and forgiveness. He's always driven to go about that business. He's always looking to expand his influence so that more people can come into relationship with God. He is all about his mission. What's your mission? What's your calling? Where are you headed? Pause for a growth check. In what ways are you bigger now? In what ways are you stronger now? In what ways are you better equipped? What are the things that you have to offer that you didn't have before? Redo your MBTI, your Myers-Briggs. Find a coach, talk to a pastor, connect with a therapist, spend a lot of time praying and reflecting on your journey. Start a journal of thoughts about all of the personal growth that you can identify within yourself. Ask your spouse, can you see any growth that's happened in me? If you could say, if I was going to make a change, what are some of the things that you would say that I should be considering as I look for a new opportunity, as I look to do something else? Get to know the new you. And by the way, the new you also is probably moving on from some old habits. The old you may have been, somebody who had some habits they just shouldn't keep, and you just don't want to keep. And some of those old friends that we had, sometimes we outgrow friends because those old friends want to keep us down into the old us, but we don't want to be the old us. We want to keep on growing. We want to keep on changing. So sometimes the change that happens in us, when we take a pause to reflect on our growth, sometimes that's enough for us to realize those old friendships are friendships that I just can't keep because they're going to bring me back into a place where I've grown from. And I don't really want to go back there because I'm so much bigger and better and healthier than I used to be. Pause for a growth check and assess the change that you need to make. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm bringing it down now. I'm coming to the takeaway, but I'm not there yet. I'm just wrapping up, summarizing a little bit. Here's what I believe about you. God loves you too much to leave you the same way he found you. What? Yeah, it's true. God loves you too much to leave you the same way he found you. He loves you. He's growing you. However, sometimes that growth goes completely unnoticed by us, because growth is pretty, small incremental changes, very small. Sometimes we don't notice it. So pause for a growth check. That growth check is going to give you some insight into relationships you can no longer hang on to, because they're just pulling you back into a life you've left behind. That growth check is going to give you some insight into how you need to rewrite your resume or go back to school. That growth check is going to help you see the new context that you're equipped to go to, because you're going to be more effective there than you are in the one that you're at right now. Okay, so here's the takeaway. God loves you too much to leave you the same way he found you. So pause for a growth check. If you're not already part of a community that you're connecting with, would you please consider connecting with For Community, where we create community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. Okay, that's it from me to you for now, and I'll see you next time.